Hello everybody, welcome to Tuesday Talks. I'm Harsh from Fun Academy.
And I'm Sanna from Fun Academy as well.
Today's topic is outdoor learning environments, and we have a fantastic episode all the way from Beijing in China.
Yeah.
Last week, Sanna took a trip to our kindergarten in Beijing, China, and then we have some excellent footage of our little astronauts taking a stroll through the park. And what we did is we recorded how they would prepare for such a session together with their teachers,
Yes.
and also followed them through in their journey and what they explored, what their interests were, etc. So now we have the footage for you, and we will talk more about how you can prepare for such an activity, what you can observe, and the ways that we can encourage the little ones to explore and learn through fun learning outdoors. So let's go to the footage.
Let's have a look.
So we can see now that the little ones are getting ready to leave the kindergarten with their teachers.
Yes, they're on their way out, but even before they were walking out of the kindergarten, they did preparations for this little field trip. It was a very hot day, over 30 plus Celsius degrees out there. So, of course, they needed to get ready with their sun lotion, and then they had to be thinking about what kind of clothing they're wearing and make sure that they have enough water in their water bottles, and packing their little astronauts' backpacks with the materials that they would be needing. So there was a lot of preparation going on before this field trip. And, of course, for the adults, it was also like a preparatory phase when they were thinking about what kind of things would they be looking at, noticing and discussing, and maybe choosing the books that they would be taking along on their little trip.
And now they have left the kindergarten and they have now reached the park. And I think it's also interesting to see that they're not alone. We have also something interesting happening in the background.
Yes, I think it was very interesting during the whole field trip to have a look at what else is going on in the park. And here we have a woman doing her Tai Chi, and we're listening to the music that goes with that. The children did not pay much attention to something that's always going on in the background for them, but it was interesting for me to be seeing all the different activities that were going on during this field trip that I was, of course, observing as well. So this was one interesting part, and she being so focused, and then children on their way now in the actual park. It was also interesting the walk to the park, the traffic crossing the street, and how the children had learned so much about how to hold hands, how to walk, and how to be observant of the other traffic that was going on on the way to the park. But here they're already in the park, and like we can hear, okay, after the Tai Chi and that music in the background, now we're entering into another sound world with a totally different kind of atmosphere and people and their music. Actually two groups that the children will be observing here while passing by. Also for a Finn, it was interesting to be walking in a park with all those different sounds going on. We usually go to a park and it's very silent, and here we have all these different kinds of activities going on. The children are talking about them and looking at what's going on, and but they're still like heading to where they plan to go, so they know where they're going to spend their day.
And I think that this brings up an excellent point where when you go to an outdoor learning environment, it's not just about what you see or the visual effect, but also there's lots of sound. There's lots that you can experience in terms of natural sounds, and also the sounds that people around you are making.
Yeah, it's a very sensorial experience from like many angles. It's the sounds of nature, it's the sounds that people make, it's cultural activities like in this case, and then all the smells and fields for the plants that they're looking at. These children visit this park weekly, so what they also are doing is observing how the park changes. They'll be seeing a tree that was green last week, and suddenly it's beautifully purple this week, and they're wondering why this happens, and then the discussions about what changes happen in nature and how fast these changes happen are also going on. And at the same time, it's a sensorial experience. All the things that we see in a park during a walk are learning opportunities. It's learning to be together, it's learning to mind your way, it's learning about traffic, it's learning about nature, and it's learning about time. Again, now we have a different kind of world that we're hearing. We're entering into an area where they have a karaoke going on and people singing their songs and also doing dancing.
And also to talk a little bit about teacher to student ratio in an activity where you're going outdoors. I feel as though we have, especially when you're moving outdoors, it's important to have enough staff members to ensure the health and safety of the students as well.
Yes, and in this case they have two groups that have gone on this field trip together, so they have the teachers of two groups walking together with the children, and the children have been practicing in smaller groups and doing smaller trips before they enter into this kind of a longer field trip. And I think it's nice that they have managed to mix two groups, so the smaller children are now also able to learn through the bigger kids and learning how to be a big kid and be on a field trip. So the small ones are learning from the bigger ones, and the bigger ones are learning to take care of their smaller little partners.
And here I think we're approaching the tree that went through the transformation.
Yes, they were wondering about that, because it had been totally green last week, and now it's such a beautiful purple. It was an amazing looking tree, and the children were very observant of that fact.
And I think it's very enriching when you're visiting the same place. It's a constant journey that you make. So you notice things that are familiar, and you notice the changes. It's nice to go to different places as well, but it's also nice to visit the same place over and over again too.
Yes, it's familiar to the children, and then they pay attention to details that they haven't maybe noticed or wouldn't notice in a totally new kind of environment where they're trying to observe the macro level of things. And in this place, they've also been working on creative activities, finding things in nature that form pieces of art. They've been also taking some natural things back to the kindergarten and making beautiful art pictures out of those. And this time I also noticed that they were paying attention to what flowers they saw and what flowers they had been picking or looking at last time. So they were really observant also of the small things, because they had studied them during their previous visits. They were also very interested in other people. We saw senior citizens sitting around having their tea, while some dancing and some singing karaoke. There was also this playground area. So for me, coming from Finland, that would have been a playground for children, but they were senior citizens that were doing physical activities right behind this area where we are now. And it was also wonderful to see that these children and the older people have each other in the same vicinity, even though in this case they weren't interacting that much, but you could see the different age groups enjoying this same park, but for different kinds of reasons. And everyone was appreciating the shade and being under the trees on such a warm day. So it was a very happy experience. And for these children, learning how to walk together and hold hands and make sure that they're safe when they're walking in traffic, and then being able to be free within the boundaries. They knew exactly how much room and space they had and where they can be running around and exploring. And they were super good at staying in the area that was dedicated for them. Some of the children are looking more at these small little things, sharing, here with the teacher, something that they had found. And some of the children were more interested in running around and being very physically active. So I think this trip gave all the children the opportunity to individually explore and individually experience the park, and it was a very nice experience also from the observer's perspective to see this happening, so they could follow their own interests.
Absolutely. And I think it really shows that when you have an indoor learning environment, you have a lot of control over it and you can make it look the way you want. But when you go outdoors, I think you really also see the context and the culture and the society that you're in. I think it's such an enriched environment.
It is, and I think it's a fantastic extension because, of course, the teachers understand and know what is happening outside the school, so they can incorporate what they know is going on outside the school, outside the classroom, into their learning and lesson plans. So they know what kind of things we will be seeing here, what kind of things the children can be studying and exploring here, so they just add that into the lesson and learning plan, so it becomes part of the curricular activities. They are learning life skills here, collaboration, negotiation, and I think they're also super creative. In this case, the children have been working on this hole that they've dug in the ground, and they've done that, like we've been working on this hole that they've been digging for quite some while during many different trips, and then they've been dragging big stones into this hole, and then they always put leaves that they find into this hole, and always working on this activity together. And I think this is something super interesting, and that we can be thinking about what is this hole and what are they doing here, and we can be guessing, and maybe next time we can ask the children, we're like, what is it that you're actually doing every time you come to this park, and what are you doing together, and what is your friend doing, and what's your role in this play that they're doing. So they're coming up with this kind of play, and I was happy to see that the teachers let them, because they were so excited about this hole in the ground that they were working on.
Absolutely. And it could just be that they're preparing to learn how to compost biodegradable waste.
Yeah.
You never know. It's excellent practice.
Yeah. Yes, and then you can see that the group of kids are doing things together, and then they split into smaller groups, and then they start like finding things in pairs, and then some guy is going a little bit further and fetching something that he wants to bring into this hole, and they're constantly talking about. I heard that, I was told that they were partially talking about things that are connected to this hole digging, but they also had other discussions going on during this venture.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting to notice that you don't need to bring objects or toys or things as such from outside. That children are very creative and able to find things in the environment that excites them and that they can actually use in creating this.
Yes.
Here we have them involving in another activity.
Yeah, here they are involved in an activity where they're drawing in the sand. Some of the children are drawing on their own, so they're creating their own little small world and discussing what they're creating in the sand, building little structures and making little roads. Very, very focused work. And some of the children are working together, and looks like they're just like playing around and making some kind of a mess. But and again, other children were very, it looked like they were planning their activity and planning what they're drawing in the sand. This is again another activity where you can see that they're so focused and inspired by doing something with things that they just find.
Absolutely, and now it's time to get ready to go back to the kindergarten again.
Yes, now it's time to go back, and things that we didn't see in this video were story time, for example. They did have their story time during this field trip. They had a book with them. They were reading. Some of the children didn't want to join in, so they were playing with the hole or drawing in the sand, but some of the children were like carefully listening to the story that was taken outdoors this time. And the story was related to outdoor activities and things that go on outside in nature. So it's also a good thing to choose carefully a book with a topic that's somehow connected to the overall phenomenon that we're experiencing or studying with the children. And it was like beautiful to see them reading and really immersed in a story and in the world of books, even when they were outside on this kind of a picnic. One tip was to sing winter songs while walking in the heat, because that cools you down. That was one of the tips that we heard.
Absolutely. So I think that that was a wonderful journey outdoors, and we are very glad that our viewers could join with us and take this trip through this wonderful park in Beijing.
Are you ready? Come on. 一定悠悠，come on。那好吧，我们再整上。
Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Tuesday Talks. We hope you enjoyed it. And we had so much fun taking that journey with the little ones through the park in Beijing, and we hope you did too.
Yeah, it was a joyful journey, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'm sure you have thought of many things that were going on through this field trip, and we would love to hear from you about what kinds of ideas this field trip awakened in your thinking. Like, let us know what you thought.
Absolutely. So please follow us on Facebook, and also hop on over to our Fun Learning Facebook group, where we will add more still images from this journey, capturing the different things children were doing. And we will see you next week with another episode of Tuesday Talks.
Have a wonderful week.
Have fun learning.
Bye.
Bye.